Thank you for tuning in. You're in for an educational treat. What's the scariest space fact/mystery on your opinion? The sheer distance between things. It's scary and somewhat depressing. It often blows my mind when I look up at two stars that look super close together and realize they are probably just as far apart from each other as they are to us. When you look up at the night sky, in any urban areas or those with sufficient light pollution, the stars you see, think the constellations and other bright stars, with the exception of the super bright blue A-type stars, they are usually no further than 500 light-years away. The biggest, brightest, non-A-type star in our typical night sky is also one of the biggest discovered in our galaxy, Betelgeuse. At 541 light-years from Earth is it the furthest star in the Orion constellation. Those A-types I mentioned can be seen to about 2,000 light-years away. Our galaxy is between 70,000, main core of stars and the limbs, and 150,000, the outliers before you get to the clouds, other galactic remnants from old collisions, light-years across. Only seeing those stars that are 500 light-years in radius gives us less than 1% of our galaxy to light up our night. Space. Space is unimaginably huge. Astronomer here. There are a lot of things posted here that are not really likely to happen anytime soon or affect your life on Earth much. So, if you want something to worry about, may I introduce you to the Carrington event of 1859. Basically, Carrington was a scientist who noticed a flash from a huge cluster of sunspots, which was the biggest coronal mass ejection from the sun ever recorded, aka a ton of material ejected from the sun at high speeds. It hit Earth within a day. Aurora were seen as far south as Hawaii, wires on telephone poles burst into flame, and telegraph operators even reported contacting each other when not connected. If a similar event were to strike Earth today, it would cause billions of dollars in damage, because blown transformers are super hard to replace and a lot of satellites wouldn't be able to handle it, and it goes without saying you'd have a serious radio blackout for a bit until it ended on a ton of essential frequencies. The crazy thing about the Carrington even though is we really have no idea how often such events happen. But we do know that in 2012 there was a Carrington-level solar flare that barely missed Earth. For those making next in 2020 jokes, this is not super likely this year. We do know these biggest flares happen during solar maximum. The sun has an 11-year cycle of sunspots and the period with the most is solar maximum. We are just coming out of a minimum, so the next max would be 2025 to 2026 or so. Rogue planets, planets that do not follow any given orbit. They may have been in an orbit at one time, but now they refuse to play by the rules. They were most likely knocked out of their orbit by another body, and now they are set on doing the same. There's a strangely artistic movie called Melancholia that has such a planet. That part of it is disturbing. Vacuum decay is one of the scariest concepts to me. We don't know if it exists, and we won't know until it's too late. On the other hand, you'll never know. You'll just blink out of existence one day. So nothing to worry about. Either way, nothing really matters. Yeah, but things matter to you right now. Make the most of it and spread the love. The Boötes Void. An area of space where there should be 50,000 or so galaxies, compared to other areas of the same size, but there's only about 60. Could just be empty space for some unknown reason, or it could be an ever-expanding intergalactic empire using Dyson spheres. Also, I think it appears to be growing, but that could just be galaxies moving away from the void. If the Milky Way had been in the center of the Boötes Void, we wouldn't have known there were other galaxies until the 1960s. Greg Aldering, astronomer. The Great Attractor. A thing that affects the motion of galaxies for hundreds of millions of light years. It's thought to just be a bigger bunch of galaxies. Here's one closer to home. The Kessler effect is the theory that a single destructive event in low Earth orbit could create a cascade where satellites break up into tiny fragments, taking out other satellites, breaking up into smaller fragments, and so on, until the Earth is completely surrounded by a massive cloud of tiny flying death shrapnel, which would make leaving this planet almost impossible. If you look up how much space debris there is already up there and how many satellites currently orbit, plus the continued growth of the commercial space industry, I think about it a lot. You should read 7 Eves. It could get worse. This visual that either shows how slow light speed is or how vast space is, depending on which way you look at it. I've seen videos showing the scale of the universe before, but this one really hit home for some reason. The speed of light, the fastest speed possible, looks painfully slow when you look at it in the context of even a fraction of our solar system. We're stuck here, aren't we? Mobile. Black holes. Say one heading straight towards us was discovered. We'd be completely ducked, right? Very little we could do? I can't accept the fact that there is no end in space. But if there is indeed an end, then what's beyond it? I'm stuck in absurdity. In the numerous answers I've received, the one that seems to come back the most is the universe is curved, you would end up back where you started. Seems fair enough. Then again, that wouldn't mean there is no limit. On the contrary, that would just mean we are trapped in, or on the surface of, a sphere, but there is still a limit to this Sahara. So the question remains. What's beyond it? At the end, there is either infinity or nothingness, and what the hell is my little brain supposed to do with that crap? Gamma ray bursts. We could be hit by one of these with very little warning, and if it was reasonably close, in universal terms anyway, could wipe us out rapidly or cause a ton of damage. Dark matter/dark energy. The fact that about 95% of the universe is made up of matter we can't see or detect is pretty unsettling to think about. Also, while not a fact per se, I like to think that perhaps the answer to the Fermi paradox is that there are billions of advanced alien life forms out there, but they are physically unable to reach us due to technological limitations. Perhaps interstellar transport is only theoretical, and any aliens capable of reaching us are unable to do so in an acceptable length of time. Proxima Centauri may take 25 years for unmanned spacecraft to reach us going 20% the speed of light, but perhaps it's impossible to transport actual life at these speeds without dying, so advanced civilizations have realized the futility of trying to contact other species and have simply given up. What was before the Big Bang? I think it is just impossible for a human to comprehend pure nothing or infinity. I myself had a stroke at age 9 due to a ruptured vertebral artery and lost a third of my visual field. I can confirm that it is not black. A good analogy is it is like what you see behind your head. On the other hand, infinity is so large that if you spent your whole life writing a 1 then zeros on paper, that insane number would still be 0% of infinity. I just think there is no way to fully understand the universe and there never will be. This is why even ancient societies explained things with gods because they didn't understand how the reality we live in started, and I don't think we ever will. Since time began at the Big Bang, the term before is meaningless. But before that, on the surface of Mars right now is a blur CD. God help us if aliens find that first. You need to answer this, and it is vitally important. What blur CD? Beagle 2 crash landed with a Blur album saved on board its computer. The intent was to broadcast the music playing from the surface of Mars. I think everything is terrifying about space, and I freaking love it. But one thing it scare me a lot, it's if space is infinite, imagine what kind of gigantic monster can be in there. My favorite debate I've ever had with a friend is about gigantic space monsters. I argued that since space is infinite and we don't understand much about it, that there's a good chance that there's a gigantic space monster that's just a massive head that eats planets to live. We went back and forth for like 15 minutes. Ever gone on a road trip and hit a patch where you're just driving for hours and you don't see anything exciting? I've experienced this in Australia, Canada and USA, all very large countries. Imagine doing that for years, traveling to another planet, only to find out that due to a small rounding error, your ship is 1/100th of a degree off, and you're centuries off course. Since the universe is expanding and stars and galaxies are moving away from each other, it's possible that civilizations that spring up in the far future with lonely stars will see an empty sky. Their civilizations will grow and learn, but they will never know the universe that once was. We live in a spectacular time period where we can actually look back in time and see the early universe. Future civilizations won't have that luxury. They'll believe that the universe is, and always was, dark, dead, and empty, aside from their small island of light. With that in mind, you have to wonder what stellar phenomena may have populated the universe billions of years ago but are now too far away for us to ever detect. What would have been your answer or question? Leave it in the comments below. Slap that like and subscribe button for more, and check out the link in the video description for even more answers. Peace out, and catch you in the next video.